Okay. All right. So, Grapevine Live. I was in southern Spain at the end of July, beginning of August, allegedly enjoying the sunshine, and God, it was hot. I tell you, I didn't know Spain could be so hot. Spain hotter than the Caribbean. It's crazy. Right? No, believe me.
I was there in the Caribbean, so I know it wasn't hot.
No, believe me. It was hot.
You sure?
Absolutely.
Because I was 35.
Yeah, I was 42.
Okay, you win.
And whilst enjoying, right, you know, the lovely weather, right, I'm one of these unfortunate people who kind of like go on holiday and carry their laptop with them. Don't make no sense, but yeah, I do it. And there was all these kind of emails coming through about, you know, people, situations, watch out, you know, things look like they're about to kick off. I'm like, kick off what? Kick off where? Again, whatever. You know, you kind of get used to it. And there's so many things have been happening. In our community, you almost think, well, you know, what today? But then, I can't remember, was it the 2nd or the 3rd that the Tottenham situation started? What day was it? 2nd or 3rd? Or have we all forgotten?
It was Saturday. I thought it was that good.
It was the 5th. It was the 5th, was it?
6th.
The 6th. So when I turned on the TV, right, in where I was staying, and I saw some of these images which were taking place in Tottenham, I was like, well, this isn't right. But then of course I just thought it was like some kind of knee-jerk reaction, and then in a few hours everybody's gone home and that's it. More and more confused, right, as I saw this thing almost like a ripple, right, working its way through London, right, until I'm turning on my television over the next couple of days, and I live in Croydon, born in Croydon, Mayday Hospital, that's me, I don't know nowhere else, travel but I always come back, right, and I'm seeing parts of Croydon which I, for the last 40 plus years, have been kind of around, in flames. I mean, literally, right? Like it's a war zone. Right? Before it actually got to that stage, I communicated with some people I know in the council, some senior members of Croydon Council. That was funny. I said, what's happening? Do I need to be concerned? They said, no, we know what's happening. We've got a show of force. Got the dogs out, the police are out, you know, everything is okay. This was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I said to some friends who were there, I said, no, don't worry about Croydon, Croydon's all right. How silly was I? Right? Because by the following morning, right, the images of the flames which I mentioned were all around us. And as I looked and as I saw this happening, and as I saw it spreading all over the place, the question obviously which came to my mind, as I'm sure came to everybody's mind, is why? What was the tipping point to make it get to this? Now, I could sit down and I could think of many situations which have caused unrest and caused unhappiness. We can talk about the deaths in custody. We can talk about the unemployment. We can talk about the low ability within some groups of our community in education. We can talk about a whole range of different things which are happening. But what became a tipping point to make London and then the UK end up as it did early August? Some say it was the shooting of Mark Duggan in Tottenham that done that, and maybe that's true. But I was listening to, can't remember, I think it was Nathaniel Pigg, who actually went out onto the streets of London and asked the question, right, to different social groups, why did you do it? And as he spoke to the Muslims, they had a reason that they were fighting against the injustice of what's happening around the world and the way that the Western society is, you know, basically disrespecting the rest of the countries. And then he spoke to the white working class, and they were saying, well, they were kind of mad because they couldn't get no jobs and because, you know, they couldn't see any hope for them going forward. And then he spoke to the blacks, and they said that, like, fed up with the harassment, right, my time now. And then he spoke to the gang leaders, and they said, well, boy, I had to show a man that I'm a bigger man than him. right? So I'm repping my ends, and then the next area is repping their ends, because they want to rep their ends over. They want to rep their ends over what they see another man do. What am I saying? I'm saying that there were so many different reasons which seem to come out of why this thing happened. And so today, I don't know what the answers are. I have my own beliefs, I have my own thoughts, and I don't know, some of them may agree with you and some of them may not. But ideally, what I wanted to do was to hear from our young people what they believe were the reasons. And I say from our young people because we spend a lot of time as elders theorizing based on our past experiences, based on what we think, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but the flaw in it is that it can only be based on what we think, right? The real facts, the real information come from the real young people, the teenagers of now, the 20-year-olds of now, right? The early 30s of now. What exactly is going through the mindset? Do we even think the same? Do we actually want the same thing? Are we going in the same direction? Or are we as generations actually pulling apart and tearing away, so we will never get to the same agreement? I literally want to hear. I want to more listen and respond and give my opinions today. And with what I've just said, I would like to absolutely open the floor to the audience to speak, to give their views. But what I do know is in the audience are two young ladies who work every day with our young people. They work in the field of mentoring, but so much more. And I would like you please to put your hands together as I invite Leela Thomas from Urban Synergy and Kate Oldroyd from Black Youth Achievements to join us up on the stage at the moment. Thank you, ladies. So before we go forward and before we start actually taking statements or questions from the floor, Leela, you work with young people. How do you feel about the way the month of August started and where we are today? How did we get to this situation?
I think that there's something that's been going on for there's a undercurrent of issues that have been going on in the community. It's obviously not just with the youth, it's as a community as a whole. I think just in Britain, just generally, there's an issue from the top coming down, in a sense of, how can I say, politicians, the media, the police. We've become a society that is based on self-gain, unlawfulness, and it's just a breakdown from the top. As it comes down, obviously we've got issues in government, but there have been cuts, so youth provisions have been taken away. I'm not sure how that transition has been managed as well. So cuts have been made, and the provisions have been taken away, but I haven't seen it being managed. So something's been removed, but what's going to replace that? So certain areas, I'm from South East Lucia. You're losing services like connections, a lot of support groups. Youth are left with aren't left with anything basically. So this big society model, what is it really? Is it just a I don't know, some people call it PR put up kind of thing. What is it really? But then we can't. It's a big society anyway. But where does it always come down to? You can keep on looking outwards, and really it has to come from our community ourselves, and it starts with not our community, it actually starts with yourself. And that's how I kind of see it. So, Urban Synergy is a mentoring charity, and we believe in it takes a village to raise a child. So a lot of people say, absent fathers, you can keep on hearing that. But it's not about that. A lot of young people do have the total family unit, but sometimes there's a breakdown in the family. So if you have an open-minded person that can come in and work with a young person and inspire them and use their contacts, and then you can help that build confidence in that young person, to help them to move from A to B. You can do a lot of events with young people, and then they go back into that environment. But it's important if you get a mentor, you know, we can all benefit from one. We're all in this little round circle, but if you have a mentor, it widens your horizons. And if you have somebody that can actually hold your hand, you get that confidence to actually make the walk. Okay, and personally I've been a mentor, it's a good thing. But I think personally it's a breakdown in society, and I think it has to come from yourself to accept that and not start pointing around the place and start watching other people and start working together, and then you get the strength, personally.
Okay, thanks.
I definitely agree with everything you just said. You know, there's a lot of frustrations in communities, not just communities, but within families as well. So echoing about the breakdown, there's so much pressure on us as people, but then if you multiply that and put that pressure upon young people who are trying to go through their education and achieve and do the best that they can, but they've got the pressures of society. You know, you're living in a society now where media plays such a big part, not just TVs and newspapers now, but now you have social media, which brings added pressures. You know, you have the bullying, not just cyberbullying, but you have bullying through BB, right? So, you know, there's all these hidden pressures upon young people that maybe we as adults didn't experience beforehand. You know, the family, what is the family about anymore? He said that, you know, there are families where there are two parents, but if those two parents don't have the kind of relationship or the abilities to raise their children in a constructive and progressive way, they are then just repeating the problem that they may have been through as young people. If parents don't get the correct support, how are they influencing their children in a positive way? If parents don't want to open up and actually get additional support as well, it's just replication, more of the same. You know, there's so many social factors, so many economic factors, there's pressures from everywhere, which I'm sure will be uncovered throughout the evening.
Okay.
Like Tony, I was overseas as well, and I think the prevailing images I got was that the black community were having a riot. And that's the prevailing images I had, and when I got to the airport, there's a large plasma TV, and that's all I could see. And I think rather than just repeat what the ladies have already said, I think I want to kick off with my first question, and I'm hoping some of the young people will answer this first, because certainly from our vantage point, we were not surprised. There was not anything that was going on that was surprising to us. And I guess the question to the audience, and first I'd really like to hear from some of the young people, is, were you surprised? You want to say more then?
No, I wasn't surprised.
Come on, say.
I wasn't at all surprised with the riots. I felt like it was something building up within the youth through frustration from schools, from the government, mistreatment, and labelling, basically. That's what they were thought to be doing. That's what was expected of them, so they done it.
You say building up through frustration, but the word that you said, which caught me most, was labelling. Well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by the labelling? What kind of labelling has been going on? And by who?
There's a lot of labelling. I assume there wasn't much. Okay, there was youth involved, and I think the youth that done it involved because they were labelled as, well, a lot of the black guys labelled as thugs, gang members, gang leaders.
And just to add,
Go on, let's speak.
Just to add to that is, I was speaking to Kay about this the other day. A key part of labelling is, have any of you watched Newsnight with David Starkey? Wait, David Starkey, I think, where he said that the whites have become blacks. So what he did there was he equated black with violence, being thugs, being in gangs. So that's you know, relating to labelling. Once you take on that title, self-fulfilling prophecy, you thought, okay, you know, I've been called a thug, let me live up to it. nothing more. If they were labelled as, you know, you're a good child, you know, you've got your life ahead of you, you can do so well, things would change. But people forget that once you label someone, if you call someone stupid, they automatically think, oh wow, you know, I'm a dunce. Yeah.
And you say that, but is that all? Was that enough to make what we saw happen? Other young people, there's more than these two in the room. What were you surprised? Did you see it coming? And what do you think attributed to it? See the young man down the back really shaking his head like it's coming off. Yeah, I can see you behind him. Look, this is your time to talk, because what I've noticed, in the media was two things. I noticed that, and God forgive me if I'm wrong, that they chose the young people who did speak what I would consider very well. That's all I'm going to say. It seemed to me that they chose the young people who spoke on your behalf and on your behalf very, very carefully. They never interviewed you, they never interviewed my son, they never interviewed Kay's daughter, or any of the young people that I know from urban Cindy. Okay, you could say that they weren't on the streets. But I do notice that they chose the people very carefully. So this is your time to say something. Because we want to hear, because we're, reflecting upon what's happened. And as a young lady just reminded me a while ago, the statistics are in. It turns out that less than 10% of the rioters were under 18. So the reality is, as young people, you are being blamed for something you didn't even do. How often does that happen to you in your life? All the time.
So then, but that's interesting. If that's the case, that's now a fact, and I'm interested as to where those facts came from, number one. But if it is true, then how is it that such a disproportionate message could have been sent out the way that it was? How did that actually happen? Because I know the images which I saw, right, would say something different.
The answer to your question is because black people are too emotional. And when something happens, emotions take over, we object to this, we object to that, then we don't do that. You spoke about David Starsky. How many people signed the petition? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. So that's why constantly the media can do what they want. I spoke about it on Sky News that they're manipulating black people, but how many other people said that? How many other black people in a position came out and said, no, that's wrong, you shouldn't be interviewing these young black males, you're taking the piss at the end of the day. No one else came out and said that. Why? Because we like to be whipped. Because if we didn't like being whipped, we would do something about it. Is that not true? Is there anybody want to counter that?
Yeah, I would say that.
Well, come up, brother.
This is Grapevine. This is Grapevine line coming to life now.
And it's clear. So I would say that there is a danger in us using generalizations when we say that black people are emotional. Yeah, we know that there's some elements of us, of our community who may be, but you also see that in every community. So I'd say, first of all, we also, how we speak amongst ourselves, even a close forum like this, we need to be careful on the type of language that we're kind of using and the kind of thoughts, because we need to question, where does that come from? Where does that thought come from you for that black people are emotional?
Because I see it every day, and I'm trying to build some emotion in there now, because I want some attitude in there, I want some energy in there now, I want people to engage.
Okay, so can I ask a question? Do you feel you're getting the emotion that you're looking for in here?
No, everyone says sitting down passive.
So then that kind of contradicts yourself.
Okay. Again, I have to concur with that. I know you stirred it up there. That was great. I don't think. Sorry, sir. Sorry. Who are you? My name is Paul Lawrence. Sorry, I'm David McQueen. That's right. My name is David McQueen. Just to counter your argument, I was asked by Sky News, BBC 24, BBC News, ITN, all those others to come on board and speak as a black community leader. I refused to do it, primarily because I saw that they were putting the angle of the riots as it was a black issue, when I knew it wasn't a black issue. And even though I know, I do a lot of work with young people around, I run a company called Magnificent Generation, and we work with a lot of young people, but I knew with my 2 eyes that I saw that there was a vast amount of different races and ethnicities involved in there. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, there were a lot of black people who went on there and called, and to be honest with you, half of them were talking rubbish. I'm gonna keep it, that's from my point of view, okay? And a lot of them got pulled into an argument that they should have never gone into in the first place. To counter it, I got the opportunity to go to Downing Street and speak to the Prime Minister and tell him as it was. So I only had 5 minutes with him, but I was there as part of a group, and I said, look, you know, at the end of the day, there are a lot of productive, and I didn't even mention the colour, so there's a lot of productive youth from all ethnicities who are doing things well, but there are also a lot that are out there doing trouble. And I think there is a real danger, because even when I was saying this on Andy's radio show last night, there are a lot of commentators within the community that will encourage that negativity around black people as a whole. And I think, as the young lady said, then some people start to believe that and fall into place with that. And I think there are a lot of people who will write off black people. There are a lot of people who will write off the riots as not our problem, and it is our problem. Every single one of us have to take that responsibility. You know, because when you see a group of black guys walking down the road in a hood and blah, 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 so many people cross the road, nobody wants to have that conversation. And I think the reason is because you start to believe that rubbish that you get from the media. So I believe, and I totally take on board your point there, that some people could have gone on there. I think, for me personally, the strongest person that came out there was Gus John. That's just me, I didn't see yours. You have to send me a video on YouTube. But as far as I was concerned, that's the strongest one I saw. But for me, there was a game that was being played, and I refused to be drawn into that.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. My name is Nelson Abbey, I'm a writer. Yeah, I agree pretty much with what Dwayne said, what the gentleman just said too, that there was being manipulated, and we were extremely susceptible to manipulation as a community. What happened to us was that the very first, especially the first night in Tottenham, it was very, very, very clear that it was not a black issue, only as it was not necessarily a black riot. There was all sorts of ethnicities, religions, races, you name it, they're all there thrown into the police. The very following morning, it became a black issue. And the more disturbing thing for myself is that some of the principal people who are actually portraying us as in this very, very negative light were black. If you read on the Telegraph website, and I'll say, I've said it to her face, and I'll say it again too, there's a lady called Catherine Burleson, and I will honestly warn you to be extremely careful what you're actually saying around, or what you're saying when you're doing around the two, because believe you me, she was the very first person who actually connected the two things and said the riots on the whole were black. Now, I wrote a thing to a range of different publications and said to them, guys, we are being manipulated, this is not fair, get our story out there, let us know what's actually happening over here. We didn't really get the opportunity to actually try and balance the playing field. And it became a situation time and time again, and page after page after story after story. And Paul's absolutely right, I believe the Tony report said so. The problem with it was that a lot of the young children too that they were selecting to speak on TV were selected excellently. Every last sentence, couldn't say a word, couldn't do one thing or another, and then bingo, at the end of it, it became a black issue. And when David Starkey happened, it didn't surprise me at all. If you're paying attention, if you're watching, if you're reading, if you're listening, you've seen that the environment for David Starkey to actually say some of the things he was saying was created long before David Starkey opened up his mouth. And the people that created it, I will strongly point you, and I'm happy to say names, were black people. Tony Sewell, Catherine Burleson, I will say Lindsay Johns too. There's no ethnic educated middle class in that kingdom. And they keep saying these things within certain well-selected newspapers, the Daily Mail, the Telegraph. They go to these people because they know that's what they want to hear. This is the image of you that they want you to believe, and they believe too. And they know, fair enough, they'll get you a little bit of credit in the Daily Mail, everybody can do that, it's so simple. But it just becomes extremely, extremely disturbing that people seem to, obviously I'm not criticism for yourself and BITC, I know some of these enemies of ours probably appeal to them, but yeah, I'll go for it, but then some of these enemies of ours appeal to them, that's my show up tonight. But then the problem with it too is that we just keep finding ourselves having to embracing these people and let them back into the community, which is all right, let them back into the community, but make it very, very clear to them. What you are doing is completely unacceptable. You can't turn around and portray, say the rioters, in black and white, in a newspaper, right-wing newspaper, extreme right-wing newspaper, saying the rioters were both, on the whole, were black. And you're adding to the anti-black propaganda. And then when David Starkey comes out, you then find yourself in having to agree with him. Tony Sewell is far to agree with him in the Daily Mail. So I find I don't really, sometimes I don't fault guys like Starkey when they come out and they show up with their Klansman, the 2011 version of the Klansman uniform on, because he's just nuts.
What does that look like these days?
It's a shirt, I keep saying it's a shirt. The Klansman in 2011 isn't going to show up with a hood on. He would show up in a shirt and tie. He wouldn't even join the BNP. He would do what David Starkey did, and he would still be accepted into polite society. There will be no. The lady on Newsnight didn't do her job. She didn't shut him down.
Right.
She turned around and let the guy spew his garbage. Believe me, there is no other race in this country that would happen to.
Or religion.
Yeah, or religion. You want to happen to the Muslims, you want to happen to anything else, you'd be like, no, this is nonsense, how dare you? Remember when Sharpaimages was on the Word a couple of years ago, they started just talking nonsense about homosexuals? Remember how he was shut down? That's how the whole thing happened right there. This is garbage. Enough's enough. And I think that's something that we need to actually really truly counter and recognise that sometimes that some of the actual problems that we are creating are created by ourselves, created by people within our community. Sometimes there's a lady who said it on Viv's page, Viv and Moon's page on Facebook, when we were having a bit of an argument with Catherine. We said to her, listen, Catherine said that the sword is mightier than the pen is mightier than the sword, and that's why how I choose to actually lead my revolution by the pen. This young lady said that, but this pen in the wrong hands, can be a lot more dangerous than the sword. And that's what you're doing. You have a pen and it's definitely in the wrong hands. I mean, I'm not saying ostracize them, but speak to them. Let them know that we won't be accepting this any further. And in the future, guys like David Starkey come out and feel they can disrespect us and insult our people, won't be happening anymore.
Good.
Thanks for that.
Excellent.
Thanks for that.
Did I see a hand up?
I want to say something, but I'm just saying it to
And the problem is that the media nowadays, it tries to appear impartial. And all of us are being fooled because now the whole black issue has become a social norm. When you see it now, you don't really react to it. It's like, yeah, whatever, it's the same old, same old. I think it's reached a point where we almost need to create our own media, where we're feeding the correct information. Because I can tell you for a fact that the people who are rioting, there was a white grammar school girl rioting. She's from a well-off background. What is she doing? A teaching assistant. What was he doing? So I think it's reached a point where if you want to get the right news, you have to do your own research. I had to do that to get correct information about the riot. So it might be wise to bring up an idea of setting up a movement where we create our own media, where we can feed in the right information to our community so that we're not being fooled and we're not following into the mainstream media and almost being brainwashed.
I like what you're saying, and I've heard it said in many different ways in the past. One of the things which confuses me though is that that's normally all I ever hear. I just hear it said, and the action that needs to then take place to put that into place where we become very weak. Stepping back a little bit though, to what the gentleman was talking about, it almost gives the impression, and please guys, I'm playing devil's advocate tonight, so don't look at this as my opinions, I'm just trying to look at where we can take this thing. If I'm to hear what's being said, it almost seems like there's an absolute vendetta, right, from the public persona to create an image of the black the black person, right, from a negative perspective. And I ask the question, how real is that? I mean, is that really the truth? I mean, come on, this is 2011. Is there really some kind of secret society that's trying to hold down the black man and the black woman? Are they really trying to kind of like make things harder for us than they do for the Chinese or for the Muslims? I mean, is that a fact, or are we really kind of like buying into, right, this kind of historical story that because we had to go through slavery that the whole world is against us and we're never going to get anything in our favour? And so, as someone said before, the self-fulfilling prophecy allows us to actually do the very thing that we say that we don't want to do. I mean, as young people, I mean, is that the truth for you? Do you feel that you're in a self-fulfilling prophecy and you can't break out of it? Is your future doomed to be kind of like the underclass of our society? Right? Is there any young person that wants to respond to that? And I see that we've got quite a few in the room now. Tonight is really to hear your voice. It really is not for you to listen to us so much, but let us know what you think. And we can talk for days, believe me. Paul and I were saying upstairs, if no one turns up, we'll have a conversation and we'll probably overrun, right? But we actually want to hear from the young people. If we don't hear from you, probably we won't really have achieved what we set out to do. So,
how do you feel? Do you feel, as young people, that you have the opportunity, the chance to be everything you want? Because my theory is that even the kid with his trousers down at his ankles wants to live large. He wants to live large. He wants to live in a nice house. He wants to wear nice clothes. That I don't agree with his choice is irrelevant. But he wants to live good. He wants to be able to look after himself. Do you feel you're able to do that? When you look up at what your elders have achieved, when you look at the opportunities around you, do you feel that you can be what you want to be?
I don't think so at all. I'm not very good at it.
You're doing fine so far.
My name's Gloria. I don't think so at all. I think that the youth has lost hope, which is something that we really need if we want to try and better ourselves. Like what you said about, do you think that the government's trying to keep us down?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the young, the youth, I think that's what they believe as well, because EMA has been stopped. All the things that have been cut and stopped, it's going to affect us. We're the people that it's going to affect at the end of the day. There's a, I think it's a Martin Luther King speech, and he said, when you're in, it's nothing more dangerous to build a society around people that have no say. Because what you're doing, subconsciously, that people are going to destroy that society, and subconsciously, people that have say will try and build that society. And I really do think the government, they're trying to keep us down. I know I wouldn't like to say it because I don't want to give a youth that sort of idea for them to use that as an excuse, but I really do think that's what's happening. Just everything that's going on is always against us, and I think that's another reason why the riot started. I think the kids thought, well, do you know what, we might as well do this. It's an opportunity, what else is there to do? And a lot of people also said that it was an opportunity for them to do something bad to the government and to the police. Sometimes I think the youth, we sometimes think it's us against them. So probably to do stuff for us, and when I say us against them, I'm talking about black people as well, yeah. So.
You know, it's very important that we don't forget the lessons that are available to us. There's a desire in all people to seek significance. And that's an inbuilt desire for every single human being to seek significance. And the reality is, if our young people do not feel they can achieve significance through what we would like to call legitimate means, it doesn't mean they won't still seek it. I mean, we need to be very aware of how our young people are feeling.
Well, I don't think we need to be aware, I think we need to hear. I mean, I don't want to say anything. I said that we was going to have some youth representation on this panel. And I'm glad to say that the young man who I was looking for has arrived. So many negative stories, so many disillusioning stories about our young people. But I was on a radio show a few weeks ago, and I was fortunate enough to meet this young man. Walked into the room, didn't think anything of it. There's another youth. He's just coming in, he's doing his thing, he's talking. And the humility of him was, I think, was struck out more than anything else. Comes to be that this young man is like an international recording music genius, right? Traveled the world, every single continent, right? Plying his trade, signed not to an independent but to a major record label. And shortly after we finish here, in the next few days, is off again to do an American tour with no less than Ziggy Marley. Please, put your hands together as Natty joins us on the stage tonight. As he settles himself, I see Kay and Leela have a few things to say, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Natty to join us in the conversation.
I was just listening to what Floria was saying, and I just wanted to ask if, as young people or people in the audience generally, do you feel that you actually belong in this country? Is there a sense of belonging, a sense of pride? No?
I'm definitely not now. Like walking down the street, especially if I'm with guys and something, the way, I don't mean to say it, but the way the white people look at us, it's like we want to take them back, or it's like we want to do them harm or something. And
is it more apparent now, or did you feel this way before?
In certain areas, you walk down the street and you think, this is a nice area, then you get certain areas and you think, okay. But even more so now, definitely after the riots.
Okay. What about this side of the room?
Anyone else?
Yeah, it's back.
It's back.
It's back.
It went away?
Yeah, it went away, but now, you know, when I'm getting on the train, dressed normal, sit down next to people, you can see the wrapping in the handbags and stuff. Shirt and tie, it doesn't happen, but when I'm dressed normal, it's all back. It's all back.
Anyone else? Jake?
Yeah.
I think the riots happened because we stepped back in time. We've gone back to how we were in the 80s and the 70s. You know, that perception of black people with the handbags, grabbing, and the negativity around black young people. And every step of progress that we make seems to have been taken away. Which is why the young people now are rioting to make themselves heard. They're doing exactly what we did. And we made progress in the 90s and we've just gone right back to the beginning, as far as I'm concerned.
Why do you think that? I mean, there's been so much money invested, there's been so many so-called community workers. How could, no, I don't mean like that. I mean in terms of like community projects being set up, there's been so many kind of like investments in black groups, okay? So if all of this energy and money and support and resource allegedly has been given, how can we just drop back just like that? Is there any sense of responsibility that we need to take for that? Or was it taken? I mean...
Definitely. The young lady there.
Okay, let's go there and then we'll come back there.
I didn't really want to say anything. I'm not one of the young ladies.
Of course you are.
The elders. But interesting point that you raised there, and you as well, because the issue is a lot of money was invested in community organisations and etc. But sometimes, not sometimes actually, from my experience, especially over the last 6 years, I'm a local councillor. What I've seen is that we do have to take responsibility, because what happened is that we have to understand why money is given to community groups, and I'm sort of like saying what I'm saying very blatantly here, because the thing is, at the end of the day, I had a project, okay, to do, and asked the national, with others, asked the National Heritage Lottery to fund it, and one thing that was clear from the Lord, whatever his name, that came down to view the project, it was over in East London at the time, and he said, we wouldn't fund this because it will succeed without our funding. Think about that statement. This is not something we would fund because it would succeed and be sustainable without our funding. And that's the reason I became a councillor actually, was because of the voluntary community sector organisations. And if you think about it, the monies that were put into the voluntary community sector for 2 or 3 years, small pots of money, they were all taken back. And I think that the responsibility I'm talking about is what happens that we need to ensure that when we get funding, we put in the right contingency plans, though that even if the funding is taken away, we can be sustainable and the groups don't fold up. So, I mean, from that perspective, from the funding perspective, that's one thing. I'll keep quiet because I really came here to listen to the young people to gather information. I will input if possible. But we need to take responsibility for ourselves, you know.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to listen, right, with 1.5 ears and talk to the other half that's out there, because you will have a lot to offer, and as much as you are learning, we need you to teach. Okay? Adam.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad we're in this type of forum. So what I'm going to say is really from my own personal perspective. And to be quite honest, I think we can talk about the governments, we can talk about all these different things, but me personally, I believe that my generation, us adults, we are responsible, we're the ones who let down the youth, because it's our responsibility to be able to provide them with all the opportunities that they need. Yeah, maybe talking about the media. We ain't got no media. We haven't got our political stuff together. Socially, economically, we haven't put our stuff together. And it's not because we don't have the finances. As a community, we are one of the biggest consumers, supposedly. So we have money. And I've been involved in various projects for nearly 15 to 20 years. And the thing is, what I've experienced from some black people is that they feel that because they're all right, because they've got a job, because maybe their households are right, they don't care about anybody else. But to me, like I say, it's our responsibility. I've heard a quote said that we are one of the first generations to be less to the next generation than anybody else before us. So that is a reflection on us. So we can talk about all these things and the government's taking away money and taking away this and taking away, what about us? I think it's easy for us to always point the finger outside and say it's everybody else, but the reality is, what about us? So for me, the reason why I came here today was to kind of hear what the youth are saying as well. And like I said, for me, it hurts my heart because it's like, you know what? These are the people we've let down. But the government, forget the government. At the end of the day, we know that the government's got their own agenda. You can't blame them. This is their country. They're going to do what they're going to do, standard. Don't knock them on that. The bottom line is, what are we doing? And the reality is, I think when we take the time to look at ourselves, look inside ourselves, look at what we're doing, what we haven't done, then the truth is really there for us to see. So that's my views, and the reality is, moving forward, how do we live up to what we're supposed to be? We talk about, it takes a village to raise a child. You know, if we look back at the African villages, think of it in this way. If somebody goes to the chief and asks for, oh, we need this in the community, and the chief says, okay, 1 second, let me go for, I have to go and walk to go and find out from that person if I can do that for you, I'll be back in a minute. How much respect would you have for that person? But at the end of the day, we're the elders in our community, and right about now, we're not able to give the youth what they want. So that's my views. And to me, that's really what we should explore.
Excellent. That's big. Just want to ask our guest who hasn't yet spoken, if he has any points on that topic.
So just briefly, to try and catch up to speed, what I would say, just to carry on with what I was just saying now. You feel like I put a question right back at you, and even maybe even your elders yourself, and say, are you scared of some of these? Like with how they're running wild and stuff? Because I've had a lot of conversations with old and young, where it's like, I hear some elders be like, I can't control even my own son, I don't know why. I tell them this, even my hands are tied behind my back because the government is saying I can't even make my own child or whatever. Discipline my own child, whatever you want to say. And some of you don't understand skunk as well, and how really that messes up with the youth. Obviously you understand because you see the you see the effects, and you don't see no benefits. Where there might be certain elders maybe in the rest of the community that might show you the benefits maybe for certain types of people. Well, that's them then, but just speaking about us now, where I'd say I'll put it back to the elders and be like, yo, it's like you we can't come to. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because like, if I be like moving differently, moving maybe a bit digi because I'm on them things, and you lot is buying us PlayStations when I ask them because my brethren has it, just to shut us up because I know that you're pushing 2 jobs or whatever. And even just the off-key light refractions and all the killing and gunman and Grand Theft Auto and this auto and whatever. So I feel like, question back on you, like, are you scared or what? Why don't do nothing? Do you know what I'm saying?
You want to answer that question?
I mean, I'm looking at you because you're the last person speaking. But just because you were speaking maybe on behalf of your generation, and you were speaking on behalf of maybe even certain elders as well. So I put it to yourself, but to other people. Like,
I'd actually prefer you didn't answer that and then somebody else took that on, right?
Are we afraid of our children?
Yes.
No.
No. Yeah.
No.
Okay, hold on.
Marley ain't afraid of me at all. She knows when to discipline me. And I think, of course, what you're saying in a nutshell is that it starts from the home.
Yeah. Basically, yes.
Yeah. Me and Kay were speaking about this yesterday as well. If you don't respect your authority figure at home, how on earth are you supposed to then show that outside of the home? In terms of, okay, your teachers in school or the police. So, in a nutshell, okay, if it's starting from the home, then yes, elders need to make an impact. They need to input inside the rearing of the child. But, again, like you said, they feel restricted. My mum, she didn't care about what laws were in place. When the belt needs to come out, the wooden spoon, the stick, when it needs to come out, it will reach.
No social services.
And what that helps, what that does is, if you discipline in love, you will see the effects of it in the child. I can be a perfect example. My mum's, she's by herself, so there's no way that she could have done that without the stick. So definitely, I think if we go back to the elders and, you know.
It's a peculiar role, yeah, and I see a lady shaking her head, so I want to hear what she has to say from the flip side.
Hitting for a child. It's about respect at home. Though the elders and adults don't know respect themselves, they don't know how to parent their children. In the riot, you had young people stealing for their mums. And their mums are sending them out onto the street. So it's about the community actually coming together and actually educating the parents to educate their children. Come forward with what you said, is it Dwayne, about, no, is it Addy, sorry, my name is terrible, about talking about the media, what you spoke about getting together. We are, in a way, activists and armchair activists. I run a youth project and most of the youth want to come. They said quite clearly we're going to do this. It's going to be a big hype for a couple of days and a couple of months. Everyone will email each other, Facebook each other, then there's nothing again for the young people. We're not wasting their time. And I think that's what we seem to do. We get together, we react to an event, like the riots, and suddenly it dies down again. And we blame funding. I run a project about no funding. We blame each other. The whole riot is about division. Because of the elders abusing young people on Facebook, how the young people are running riot. No, it's just adults doing it, but it's a master plan dividing us all up. We need to against each other anyway, and it just helped to enlighten us. So for me, I just hope we get something out of this whole meeting today and it actually continues to go forward rather than be just a moment of this. The beating, girl, I understand what you're saying, I never got beaten in my life. It's not, you don't have to hit.
I got your share.
Yeah.
Me too. Okay, we'll go to Madeline the Queen.
Yeah, I just, for me, I think that we talk about the black community as though it's this entity that actually exists. I feel, in all honesty, it doesn't exist. We are very disenfranchised. We are called black here, and then underneath it are a myriad of different groups of people. And I think that this is our actual problem. And then we go, well, the black community aren't doing this, and the black community aren't doing that. Actually, the black community is completely disenfranchised. And you spoke about, you know, an African community. That's not my experience. My background is a mixed background of Bayesian and Antiguan. So that's two different communities, two different. And then I was brought up here in the UK. So my whole experience is a very unique experience. I'm married to somebody whose background is Bayesian and Grenadian, and brought up here. That's again a different experience. And you know, you may have African, and we say African, you know, there's 52, 53 different countries, and we call all of this. You know, I remember I was sitting in a counselling, on a counselling course, and I actually sat there and going back on what was said about how we feel about ourselves, and I felt very intimidated because I was, in my head, the only black person in the room, okay? And there was a Brazilian lady, and actually, she was considered black. I didn't consider her black because her hair was straight. And so I think we have our own issues about our community, and I think it's when we overcome those issues, then we can kind of work together. I don't know the solution to that. What I just feel is that, you know, Dwayne, you said, oh, we're whipped. We're not whipped, we're disenfranchised. You know, if you're, pardon? What's happening? It means that we're not a community. So how can we get our community to really get on. And you spoke about, you know, a project starts and then it kind of filters away. That's because more often than not, we're sometimes tugging from very different angles, very different, you know, even within the black, inverted commas, culture, there are, again, a wide spectrum of cultures underneath that culture. I think that's what we have to tackle that in some in different ways. Instead of labelling black, you know, it's all black. Black is so wide, it's just so wide, you know, and I think that that's one of our big issues, and that we have to overcome. And when we talk about, I know you want to get back, but when we talk about, I think there is a real responsibility on us as elders, but I think again, it's disenfranchised. We have a huge middle class of black community, and I think you're right to some extent that don't seem to be doing anything, but they don't do anything together. There are pockets of people all over the place doing lots of different stuff, but it's about cohesion, and what our community doesn't have is cohesion.
Hi, I'm in agreement with that lady over there. I'm a very positive person. I was talking to Paris in the car on the way down here, and I said the reason why Urban Synergy started is that I kept on going out and talking about the same thing. And to me, you've heard this say, the definition of an idiot is when you keep on talking about the same thing. I can't do it personally. I don't like going to things so you don't have no outputs. I'm a project manager, I like to deliver things, simple. Plus I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So even from all the people in the room, I'll just say now we've got a Q&A session in Canary Wharf. And we're a mentoring resource pool, so what that means is we come together as a community. I love my community as well, I always say. I think we're trendsetters and we're creative people. I love the young people in it. I think we can all dream and we can all achieve, and we've all got talents. I believe in showing young people opportunities. Our mentoring resource pool has many professionals in it. I think anything that a young person wants to be, pilot, scientist, architect, whatever it is, we've got that there. And the problem with the press, I think, is that there's so much dirty water around, negative press. The young people can't see, or they can't see what positive things they want to aspire to be. And it all starts with believing. So our mentoring resource pool is having those different professionals there that open up their networks to get young people scholarships. Actually, we're like a magnet, so we get mentors to help seek opportunities for young people. So like last week, for example, we got a young girl got law school paid for 2 years, and she's got a job at the end of it for a law firm. We've got another young boy who's going to a law university, he's got a scholarship. Today I was sending out things about, you heard it, apprenticeships. There's opportunities there, but the problem is, it's our responsibility as adults to lead by example and to give it to that young person so that they can benefit from it. So just from today, you know, if there isn't anybody here that isn't doing anything, there's a lot of people in our community that are doing things, and there's lots of charities that do work together. Similar, like how we work with Paul Lawrence and Kay with the awards. We are raising the profile of young people. There are awards ceremonies that are going out there. We are doing well, and we do work together as a community. I heard Paul on BBC London, I think it was, and I said I got 50 people that want to do some mentoring in the community. Paul came along, met me at work in Canary Wharf, didn't you? And he said, this is such a great idea, I'll train you for free. And also he wants to be part of our mentoring resource pool. And that's how we kind of work. So we do work together. I don't want anybody going home depressed, because I can't say that anymore that we don't work together, because we do. You know, I've got pilots there that's saying, if you've got a young person that wants to be a pilot, I'll meet them down in Heathrow or City Airport. I've got music people I've got young people that want to be events managers, but they haven't got any contacts. They're going to meet an event manager tomorrow in Kensington. I've got, you know, Paris or whatever that wants to do acting. She was on Dub Plate Drama with Roger Griffiths, an actor. It's there. We're resource rich as a community. We're resource rich. We can empower ourselves. Yeah? So that's all I want to say, really. And don't go home feeling depressed, because I nearly did.
Okay. I just want to say very
sign up to be a mentor.
Right. Yeah. I just want to say very quickly, I think that there are a number of organisations that are out there, but I think one of the issues is visibility. Because I know you, Len, okay? But I can tell you, I have been to at least 20 schools this year in London where I've gone to speak in front of a majority black audience, and a lot of kids have come up to me and said, oh my God, I didn't realize black people did the job that you did. And there were a lot of kids who I also spoke to, and when I had a conversation with them, and I told them that, you know, there's successes in their hand, and this is what they can do, and they said, well, I can't speak like you, bruv, okay? And so there is this understanding of that there are, you know, a lot of the organizations that are out there, but one of the things I know we've been saying consistently, and I don't know, maybe from here, I put up our hand and a couple of us come together and put something together that makes it really, really, really visible. Because I'll give you an example. It's a bit of a sore subject, but this project with Boris Johnson with the dementia. Sorry, I'm just a bit of a sore subject. I'm going to go very quickly, all right? Don't look at me like that. But this organisation that's for the, you can't see me, I'll move like this just in case you can see me. So that all the mentors that are going to be doing for the young black men, one of the things I had an issue with is that there are a lot of organisations like Urban Synergy and LSDC and a whole lot that are already doing work, and it's almost like we're reinventing the wheel. So one of my things, I suppose, if we're looking for solutions, I think that if there's one thing we should go away from tonight is how can we say, right, within the next 2 or 3 months, that I know Kay does her awards down in London. I know up in Leeds they have one. A couple of years ago we were doing one up in Manchester. There's one in Liverpool. I'm just saying maybe the chances now, you know what, as you said, we've got the resources. We don't necessarily need the money because we know how, even with Facebook, you don't need a marketing budget anymore, okay, all right? Or Twitter or what have you. Get that stuff together. And if we say as a commitment going forward, right, you know what, within 2 months, let's pull all those resources together, have them, and it's there. One of the things I will say, just very quickly, is that even for some people, I think that we should not, and this is just me, personally, I'll be very different about it, we have a drink afterwards. One of the things I think is really important is do not make people feel that they're entitled just to have that. They need to know that they need to work and make the effort and take that extra step and meet us halfway, because there are a lot of young people who will say, oh, there's nothing out there for me, and a lot of us are saying, well, we have got some stuff for you, but there has to be a meeting of the halfway. And I think a lot of people, as you were saying, have had money thrown at them and they're expecting it, all of a sudden it gets pulled away and oh my gosh, I don't need it anymore. So somehow, in the middle, let's create this platform and also redefine what entitlement means. Tell young people, you know, you're entitled to a great future, but you've got to work bloody hard to get there.
Excellent. John?
I just wanted to...
Yeah, sorry, can you go
Sorry,
on?
yeah, sure.
I'm not going to remember everything. I want to watch it back.
What I have is so very brief, behind the scenes, worth stepping all the way out to then go back over. But hi, good evening, everyone. My name is
come out
Jo.
and take the mic, please.
Oh, you can all hear me, can't you?
No, it's for the...
Oh, really? Okay. All right, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Joan. Really, what I wanted to do was go back to an even more grassroots level and address something that Natty was saying when he asked, are we scared of our youth? I am. I'm not scared. I have one daughter, a fantastic 13-year-old, who I'm very proud of, and I know that when she's not with me, she is an ambassador of young people because she conducts herself in the way that young people should conduct themselves. However, I am afraid of the youth out there. There are a lot of youth that I feel very intimidated by, and you know, in addition to all the organisations that are doing great things for our young people, I think that the responsibility lies with each and every one of us to not be afraid of the youth out there and to engage with them, and when they're, you know, making an idiot of themselves in public, is to pull them up about it. Do you know what I mean? What are you doing? How do you think you look to the public carrying on in this way? It really does start from that grassroots level before we can even get to the point where we engage them with all these various organisations. And so to that end, it's about, you know, us engaging with the youth and earning their respect, so that in turn they can respect us and respect themselves, and that's really what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks,
You don't have to, if you can do the volume, you don't have to.
Yes. You remember me?
No, that's why we've got the video. Because I want to
watch it
back.
Could you please? Thank you, Ray.
There's no need to be shy. We're all family here.
Hello everyone, I'm Julia. For me, I have 2 children. One's 20, so she's nearly an adult, and the other one's 4. I have 3.
According to who?
And when she leaves my house and gets her own house. I have 3 nieces as well, and one is just done her she's done her GCSEs early. One of her GCSEs, her first science, because she wants to be a psychologist. And for her, you know, work placements, the school made her find her own work placement. Now, for a 15-year-old trying to approach someone for a work placement, it was not happening, and the frustration, and to know that there was someone like you around where she could have got that work placement and got that help. Now for me, I'm going back to her and said, right, you can contact these people and my other 2 nieces, also my daughter and the rest of the girls in my family, but not just that, for her school, because there are a lot of girls in there who want help and don't know where to go to get help and who to contact for things like, I want to be a pilot, but they don't know anybody. And to just be able to come together, as you said, David, as a community and go, I know it's difficult, but to go to schools and say, look, we do this, we can do this for you to help your kids. And then also it gets the parents involved, because for them it's, oh, yeah, they know about that. To be honest, I did know, and I did forget, because 3 years of university brain, kind of everything, nothing else about the university. And I'm upset that I forgot that, because I could have passed that on to her, but I can do it now. So thank you very much for that.
So,
long time.
Oh, you're going to speak, sir. I just want to say this, right? Because I'm pointing at everybody in this room. This is why, what the young lady said is exactly why, at the beginning of the evening, I invited you to come up and talk about what you do, who you are. We all do different things. When we keep it to ourselves, when we think that it's not important, we don't know how we're helping somebody else. See, it might not be for yourself, right? You've heard it a million times, you know what you do, you don't even think it's anything special. But there's going to be that other person out there who just needs to hear that word. If you don't tell them, then the reality is they believe it doesn't exist. They just don't. Brother, I said to you, like, you know, everyone's looking at you, so there must be something. You said, absolutely not.
I said, truly nothing.
Truly nothing. And then you come up and you say, I'm a writer. And so therefore I get confused.
I'm not talking about something spectacular.
Well, actually, that is very spectacular, because for somebody who wants to become a writer, you're the person that they need to speak to.
Yeah.
And I guess the point which I'm trying to say to you all is that don't in the old church they say, don't keep your light under the bushel, right? Let it shine.
Church boy.
Yeah. Father's a deacon. He wouldn't be so proud of me now. You got to tell your story, guys. I just wanted that to come out again, brother.
Okay. Yeah, thank you to everyone for coming out tonight, because this is something really positive and inspiring to see many people older than me coming here and talking about something positive. I just like to say my name is Jay Kingston. I come all the way from Harlesden in the Brent Borough to be here tonight. That's great. Thank you, Jay, for inviting me. Yeah, I'd just like to say I think 2 things. I didn't come to talk about the riots, because as far as I'm concerned, that was socially engineered. So it was something that the government socially engineered so they can implement a new system. So when you do your own research and when you look at it, more time than not, it comes down to 2 things, that's money and power when it comes to politics. And not in politics happens by accident. Okay, so I didn't come to talk about that. Okay, I came more time to just listen. Okay, because I'm 25, so I'm a young person myself. I think 2 things. Okay, influenced by older people, because I'll tell you one story. I was in my barber shop having an educated conversation. So there was 3 elders there. One of them was talking to me about something. I bought a DVD of him. The 2 other elders there that I quite looked up to, and these guys, what you call road guys, they started laughing at me in my face. Okay? So I'm there having an intelligent conversation, they started laughing in my face. Okay, but 3 months later, we have a paper called the Wilson and Brent Times. And guess whose face was on the front page as they went to prison for drug laundering? It was them 2 guys. So influenced by older people and who you're around is very, very important. So it's about empowerment. First thing, I've been at the age of 14, I co-founded a mentoring program in my school. So I co-founded at 14. At the age of 15, I started volunteering. I've never stopped since. So the whole thing is about, if it's empowerment, you can talk about the issues and whatever again and again and again and again. And more time than not, I come to these black events, and more time than not, there's too much talk and not enough action. I'm really not interested anymore. If you're going to talk to me about a problem now, like you said, talk to me today, but tomorrow tell me how you're going to deal with it.
Like, I've been volunteering since I was 14. I've never stopped. I'm part of 5 different volunteer organisations, and I'm actually in the moment of starting my own social enterprise. Okay, I've been working with young people for 10 years on a work and voluntary basis, but I never stopped. I'm always trying to make more and more and more and more happen. So the whole point is, if you really feel passionate about something, which I do, you've got to make it happen yourself and encourage others to do so. So that's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Paris again. So I want to talk about basically talking about elders and giving opportunities to youth, but I think it's for the elders to get the opportunities, but for the youth to grab the opportunity and work for the opportunity. See, with Urban Synergy, I'm youth ambassador for them. They will send me an email with jobs, apprenticeships, events, and it's up to me to fill out the forms, to send my CV, etc. They'll bring me to networking events and they'll just put me in a room, and it's up to me to network, to meet new people, to approach these people and find people that can help me. So yeah, and I'm just going to also touch on the parenting thing as well. My mum wasn't really strict, and mum still isn't strict. I think it's not really to do with parenting, I think it's mentality and the community. So I think it's people around you giving you positive vibes. My mum really doesn't push me educationally, but I still strive to reach those A stars and stuff, because my mentality is I have to do that for myself. So I don't think it's really about discipline, I think it's about community and people around you, not just the parenting home. So yeah.
Thanks for that, Paris. That was some interesting points there. I wonder if everybody agrees with that. Natty?
So, for me, part B of that would be something called centralised and organised. So, the way I see it is that when we're looking to certain groups for funding, and we're looking to certain, maybe they're closing down situations here, maybe they close down youth centres. I grew up, my whole youth, I watched all the youth centres close down one by one to the point of when I was, this is from the age of about 10 through to when I hit, basically when I started working, which was probably about 19, okay, there was probably none left. So what I'm trying to say is, the clothing brand Fubu just came into my head, for us, by us. Again, talking about centralising and organising. So, I don't even want to talk about going down too much about avenues that have gone down before, political avenues. Maybe the term Black Panther, people might see it as political or whatever. I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking about people coming together and doing things for ourselves, because that we know funding might stop. These things might happen over here. Police might be like, you know what, we're bringing in these laws now. If we got our own situation on lock from the get-go, which starts, yeah, okay, it does start maybe with the elders, but also it just starts within ourselves, because even listening to people talking about, well, we're different cultures within our cultures, and for me, I see us as Africans. That's just how I see it personally. So when we have a situation where we all got a similar vibration, forgetting about which island or which part of Africa we come from, there's a certain vibration that comes amongst us when we all feel it. We all dance in the same way at funerals as well as weddings. You get me? It's just, so what I'm trying to say is that taking that spirit forward and centralizing and organizing is my talk, the action. That's the most important thing. To be honest, I am a little bit scrambling, looking right, how? But I think that many minds is more powerful than one. And so whether it's buildings or forums even like this is a blessed occasion right now. This is a very blessed occasion right now. But like the sister said, what is it if you don't turn into action? So, I'm hoping for someone to propose something.
I'm going to put it out. One of the things which I find very interesting is the fact that the subject of funding has come up a number of times, okay? And on the back of the subject of funding, we talked about how the funding gets taken away, right? And Natty, you brought up something very close to my own heart, which is the whole thing about entrepreneurship, which is why are we actually talking about funding, right? Well, why is funding even attractive to us if we know the methodology of funding, right? And then, and I'm putting this out to the youngers as well, when you see your elders, right, scrapping around for pieces of money, right, that have been given to us, right, rather than making their own money that you then own, what image does that actually send? How do you see us? Do you see that as progressive? Do you see that as, yeah, you know, my elders have done a good thing, or do you see that as, well, actually, you've just been given that, so you didn't even deserve it, really? Are we sending a message of being developmental, being progressive, being the type of person that you want to grow up to become? That's an interesting point for me.
And look, this is not only a conversation with the people at the front. The question is for the young people. You know, the 100 Black Men have a saying about let them see what they want to be. And we need to understand, are you as young people seeing the things in your adults on every level that inspires you? You know, when we're here talking about funding, are you asking, well, why don't you just do it for free? Why are you waiting for funding? Every one of us knows that he who pays the piper calls the tune. All of us know, and we can all name 10, 15 projects which collapse when funding is pulled. We know it. So why are we applying for funding next month about something? Why? And it doesn't matter which government. It's always been this way. It's always been this way. So the question to the young people again, do you feel that we are doing enough of our own backs? In your communities, do you see people who are not waiting for funding, who are not sitting down saying, oh, well, I need the government to do this, oh, we need the government to do that, but people who are just doing stuff for their community? Because you say your mom's not all that for education, but you said you had a community. That's what really counts in a young person's life. Sir?
Can I set a challenge for Grapevine? In some ways, I don't want to do the camera. So challenge for Grapevine. If the Grapevine, we hear things through the Grapevine, my challenge is to you, and if people are in conversation with them down in the street, I think a more progressive thing, it's great what we're doing here now, but actually I would like to know the 5 most things important to young people that they would like to see the government address. And if Grapevine took that round to different areas to find out what the commonality are, and saying, we as a community have actually spoken to a number of young people, and these are the common things which are preventing young people from progressing.
Question 7 on my list.
To add to that point, that makes me think of a piece of research by Harriet Sargent. I don't know if anybody's read that, it's called Wasted. And she's been up and down the country speaking with gang groups, and the 3 of those 5 things perhaps, that were key issues for the youth that were interviewed were discipline, be that at home, be that within the schools, be that in whatever context, a lack of discipline, opportunities, of which people have spoke largely about, particularly around mentoring services and stuff like that, and the lack of guidance from elders, especially fathers. Those were 3 of the issues.
Here's the question that I'm going to throw back at you, because that's certainly something that we've been thinking about in our other uniforms. And this is probably a challenge to everybody in the room. It's twofold. One, the cynic in me says, what makes you think they're going to listen? Yeah. And the other cynic says, what makes you think they don't know? And I say that because in my other guys, in the other work I do, I've seen this research. I've seen the young people speak. I've seen it being said. And what I said in the article I wrote about it is that as a community, government, parents, everybody, we fail to listen.
Yes.
We don't listen. And what I'm trying to find out, if someone can help me with, is how, if this is the road, we get it to be acted upon. The research has been done. We must be the most researched people in the world.
Okay, can I quickly come back?
No, one second. Can you go up the front and talk? What you want to say must be important. So you want to say come on.
Okay. So coming back to can you hear me? So you can't do it. You can hear me. So coming back to the actions. So there's a quote was saying that actually when young people take to the streets, they take arms. So actually, if you look at young revolutions in a whole range of different countries, actually young people, when they move on mass movement, make changes. This is the first time in the UK, and if we go back from your original question about when did it start, actually, I think it initially started probably when this government very first came, and the young people who were students took to the streets and caused mass disorder. So that wasn't a race riot, that was a whole range of young people saying, you aren't listening to us collectively, and they use social networks and they outfall the police. So what I'm saying to you is actually now I think it's a good time for them to go to the government with these 10 things, because up until then it's been fine. Well, I've got another final right on. But because up until now, actually, government haven't been made to listen. And the other thing about young people is actually young people are going to vote. So at some point now, they've got to listen to the young people. So the cynic says, yes, but I think actually it's a prime opportunity to do it.
Fair. Thank you very much. Okay, I've been seeing hands. Young lady there first, and I'm going to come to you, sir.
Why do you turn your head when we say young lady?
Listen, I have to come at you because I'm listening to this thing and you're talking my language when you're talking the government knows. They know. Believe me, they know. Local government knows. And national government knows. The government will do things for young people, okay? Mainstream. But we have to be realistic in terms of our situation, right? Whether we want to accept it or not as people of African heritage. We have to be absolutely clear in our minds, okay? No government will do anything for us. Right? We have to do it for ourselves. It is when you are seen doing things collectively, that's when you have a voice. Yeah? There are fantastic projects, and I know because I was in Tottenham last week. I'm going all over just to hear because I'm thinking what's going on. And what Ade says, I mean, I say in the council, I remember in 2006 I said it when we had all those killings and stuff like that I'm afraid I take personal responsibility, me. Right, my generation, I'm first generation, came here with 5, grew up here, went through the whole school system, know it inside out, back to front, grew up in Brent, by the way, yeah, and basically, the thing is, we have to take responsibility. The point is that if we do not do things collectively, I have seen groups and projects come in for funding with brilliant proposals and they would not even get a look in. I'm being very open and very clear here. The point is we have to organise collectively. We have to also use marketing in a better way to let people know what's out there. Because I mean, I'm just really sort of taken aback to know about what's happening down in Canary Wharf and so on. And we need to support each other as well. I brought together groups, yeah, in the borough of black people, African people, what you call it, to try and do things collectively. And we don't even get past the first meeting. I'm not lying to you people, because what I hear, so, excuse me now, so who will go ahead and top? Who's going to be the CE? Who's going to be the director? And so it all falls flat on its face before it even goes anywhere. People, we need to wake up, yeah? And the thing is, there are ways that we are coming together, and as far as the money thing is concerned, I don't have anything against funding, I really don't. What I urge people to do is that when they're doing stuff, make sure that you have contingency plans, and make sure you have sustainability and plan B and plan C down the road. The other thing is as well, is that while you're doing it, don't sit back on your laurels and think, we got funding for 2 years, boy I'm alright and I'm sweet.
In it though. 18
months down the road, then it starts happening, and then you've got nothing. Do your fundraising or whatever it is, sponsoring, whatever you need to do. But I would say that financially we need to get our act together. Yeah. Financially we need to pool our resources, okay? We need to get some assets, okay? We need to have our own buildings. We need to own things. Because when you do that, then you can go to any government. Yeah. Because you're coming to the table with something. Right? And I'm saying now that there are ways to do it. Talk to me afterwards. Yes. But I'm saying now, there is ways to do it, and it's not difficult. We can pool our resources, and we can go back to the old system of putting our money together and making it work for us. We can. I don't have a problem with going to to Downing Street. I don't have a problem. You're right about elections and all of that. But at the end of the day, we need to go with a collective voice, and we don't have that collective voice. And my sister and I hear what you're saying, but you know what? We need to come together on what we have in common more than what we have not in common. Absolutely. Yeah? And so therefore, you know what I'm saying? When they see us, and I know it's not a black thing, the riots, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about beyond that now. When they see me and you and everyone else, they don't see Asian and African, they see black. End of. So we need to actually get over that. Okay. In terms of our young people, I'm so taken with you, young man. I'm going to take you home, right? In a good way. But in terms of young people, you know, they need the empowerment as well. You know, we need to embrace them. What was the young lady that talking about being afraid? That lady there. I'm not afraid of no young people. I ain't afraid of nobody. But anyway, but at the end of the day, I am. When I go on the bus and I see you that be in a certain way, I don't go up to them like I used to do maybe 10 years, 20 years ago and say, hold it down, man, and just go. Because I don't know if they're going to pull things on me. I'm going to be real. But I would love, but there are young people that I do talk to. You know what I mean? So it's about us knowing how to approach young people as well.
10 seconds.
This one.
Oh, this council.
Okay.
Hands up here, young person.
Okay. There's a few hands up.
We want some of the young people we've not heard from yet, so yeah.
I'm overstepping a young man who's had his hand up for a long time. Oh, young people stepping up. Alright. I'm going to argue that. Come forward. Everybody else who is waiting, sorry, we've got to do this one.
Age first, right?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiana. Initially, I didn't come here to speak about the riots because it's been depressing me and it's pressurizing me and everything. But we've all been talking about it, and I must say, it's wrong. It is completely wrong, and you can't say anything else. But it's wrong. It's hurt a lot of communities. It's destroyed a lot of communities, and it's true. We have to work together so we can make it better. I wouldn't say it's the government. I would say it is our mentality. Most black people, young people's mentality is very negative and restricted. For someone like me anyway, because I'm quite positive, I'm not motivated by money and everything, but people in our community, the young community, they're motivated by money and they do a lot. They go out of their way to get money. But when we're talking about the funding, they need to take advantage of the funding. They could be starting businesses. They could be, because there's a lot of people, when they talk about swagger and all of that, yeah, getting t-shirts done, that's a business in itself. Like clothing is an essential, for example. If you've got an idea, put it on a t-shirt, sell it, that's your business done. You just have to keep looping it, but people don't understand that funding is available. And for someone like me anyway, because I've been doing business plans to start up a photography and design service and doing fashion and everything, but really my head's at the music, and there's a lot of people in our community that love music, but they don't do anything about it. They're too busy talking about their problems and thinking, forget the government, we don't want to do this, we don't want their money, but they're there, and they've been taking advantage of us, so we should be paying, how do I put this, like, we've been portrayed to be very negative. If we do want to get payback on the government, it should be in the right way. So we should come out and be successful. So if there's money there, take it, use it, and put it back to them and say, look what we did. You can't just say, they got money, we can't do this, we can't do that, we don't want their money, we're just going to sell weed so we can get the money, then you'll end up in jail. Or what are you doing now? It's a loop, you can't keep doing this. That's all I have to say, really.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, I'm 16, I'm from Derby. I don't really have a lot to say. Well, I do, but...
If you come from Derby, you better have something to say. That's a long way.
I want to go back on what someone said earlier about people's parents and like, it's got to do with how they've been brought up and stuff like that, but I don't always think it has to do with how people have been brought up, because I know people that their mums don't even know what they're doing. So, and it's not always like my mum's brought me up in a good way, and that might reflect on how I am, but not all the time. And people always like, well, their parents should raise them up in a certain way, but their parents, sometimes people's parents do try and raise them, but it's not their fault, and I think people sometimes look on people's parents in a bad way, even though they should have disciplined them, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I don't know what to say.
I'm Courtney, I'm also from Derby. I'm 16. There's a few comments that I've heard today, like, it's like the 80s, and I've heard my dad talk about stories about the rioting in Brixton and so forth, and how like police would just see you and stop you and search, and like they'll beat you up or arrest you or whatever. And I can understand people saying they can feel that kind of vibe coming back, and how people can say they don't feel like they're wanted in England. But at the end of the day, we all live in England. Some of us are born in England, some of us are born out of England. At the end of the day, even if we feel like we're getting pushed away, this is our country as much as it's everyone else's country. At the end of the day, that's right. Take it. No one can tell me because I'm black this isn't my country, because the country wasn't labelled with a race. It wasn't labelled with a race at the end of the day. Come on now. So I don't think anyone can say that they feel like they're all London, because at the end of the day, like I'm born in England and I go like play away on holiday, and I feel like I can feel that I'm not from that country, if you get what I mean. And if I was, I can't say I feel like I'm not wanted here because I speak exactly like everyone else speaks. I speak in fluent English, or I might speak in a little bit of slang, but it's still English at the end of the day. Whereas if I was to go to Jamaica, they wouldn't say, oh yeah, you're from Europe, they'll say you're from England, or they'll say you're a foreigner. They will know that, they will notice it basically at the end of the day. That's what I want to say, thank you.
Sorry, that's another thing. Yeah, we're talking about the 80s and everything. I'm gonna go into technology. Our generation has been corrupted by technology, but also we have to take advantage of that as well. Despite all the Blackberries and the iPhones and Facebook and all of that, that can be put to good use. You know, the police, they knew that majority of young people, they would have a BlackBerry. So if all the broadcasts are true about, oh, the police are going to be shutting off BBM at 7 p.m, then 11 p.m, then 12 at midnight, whatever, then you should kind of think you should be smart about it. And for media as well, you should definitely be smart about it. People don't understand that media does control the country, controls the world. It's made us all gullible, but only really the people who think outside the box will actually see, no, that's not true. Then they go on to do their research and see, yeah, that's not true, but some of them don't even say anything, but when they do raise a point, they always get cut off anyway. So that's why we don't bother do anything. But I really do think it's a good idea to bring up a media group, because most people, young people are usually attracted by visual things, so photographs, videos, and musically as well. So everybody will be attracted to that regardless. So that should definitely be inputted into our community as well. Yeah, so that's it really.
Now they start, they can't stop.
Going back into like kind of the BlackBerry thing, I got one myself, and like people are saying, oh well, people are using BlackBerry like BBM, Facebook, Twitter, and everything in a bad way to like connect with each other. But like I was saying earlier to my mum, like on training, that you can use everything in a bad way. It depends on how people want to use it. So like people are saying that they shouldn't, like certain children shouldn't be allowed, like not certain people, they were like children shouldn't be allowed to go on Facebook, children shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. But it's like at the end of the day, how they use it, not who uses it.
Restriction.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say because she was talking about the BlackBerry. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, one last thing.
They're off.
I heard someone also mention earlier about creating like our own like newspaper or something like that. But I don't think we need to create our own. I think we need to utilize the ones that are there, like Young Voice or The Voice, and promote them and get them in an everyday shop, not make our own, because making our own is just going to back up what The Voice is doing. Like, it'll just be on the background. We need to get it up front, like the Daily Star and the Mirror and so forth. We need to get it out there instead of us buying it as black people are reading it and realising that Usain Bolt's on another race or something. We need to make sure everyone knows that Usain Bolt's on another race. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
I'm going to go back out to the field, but before we do, because we're on a youth thing at the moment, I'm going to just bring it back to Natty before we go out there. Natty, I'm sitting in here and I'm kind of like thinking, can this be the same youth that I read about in the newspaper? Because what the newspapers would have us believe is that there are no black youth who think and behave like this, you know. Is what we're hearing here fully representative of the true black youth, or is this some kind of small subculture? Right, and the real story is that the youth are lost, they're disenfranchised, they don't know what to do, and the media images are more correct than we actually want to believe. Where actually are we?
Well, first of all, I don't believe nothing they tell me. So, because for me, it's all even propaganda.
So let's not talk about what they tell us. You're a young man, you're out there, and you've had an opportunity to see many sides of life. So give me an insight to what maybe many other people only get to read in newspapers or hear on television.
You know what, sometimes just linking up that question with previously what was said about funding, and next to it even Youngblood said as well. So linking all that up, I'd say that some man growing up in certain places, and even not growing up in certain places, will look at certain man and ladies, sorry, that deal with funding maybe as leaders of the community, and maybe people who are more maybe middle class blacks, such and such, and these type of things. And they might say, yeah man, them man are sellout. Because them man make their money from people, whereas, okay, even go back to, because this whole thing, let's link the whole thing, let's link in slavery. Field Negroes, house Negroes. Okay, when you're growing up in the bits, it's like you can see the sky and you can see all these different type of things. So we might say, okay, cool, you know what, that man are in Uncle Tom pocket or whatever, just linking up the whole thing or whatever. And so I know that if I go to X man and I start dealing in this substance here, or I carry his strap to that person there and whatever, this is our money. This is our money. This is us. I'm big. I'm holding my own. I got more money than my mum. And I'm paying out her bill or whatever. All these different types of things, and then that, sorry to say, is one negative aspect of what you're talking about in terms of that question there when you're saying that.
But what about the fact that what they're doing is true? They're making more money. But what about the raw fact that it's illegal? Doesn't that mean anything?
No. Illegal for what? What does that mean?
Well, no, I'm talking about
that make up laws, that man that make up money. I don't know what money really is. It's a piece of paper. Then man make up a whole heap of things. And what happens is my own parents tell me that I need to get these things that I can read up on the internet. What does this say about using all the technology we have? Yeah, all these different types of things. Using it. They use this same technology. We realise, we understand certain things like the Twin Towers never, they brought that down themselves. We all know these things. And we're telling our parents these, and then parents are going to work and they're like, oh, come on now, son. So we just look at you like, come on, you're out of waste. I'm going to go and shop some weed.
So what I'm saying though, when I bring up the thing about illegal, what I mean is that because the society which we exist in said that actually you can't go out and have a gun, actually you can't go out and sell class A drugs and get away with it, are they saying that like I'm paying that no mind because the consequences that are then put on them make it worth it, or that they don't think that they're going to get caught, that they think they're invincibles, that they just don't respect the system as it is and want to do it their own way? I mean, what is that?
I can tell you that I've been so gassed before. DMX used to be my favourite artist, right?
Okay.
When I was about 14, 15. I've been so gassed that I wouldn't even care if I was here tomorrow, because I know I'm getting mine tonight.
And do you think that's reflective of the youth, or do you think that's a small component which is getting exaggerated?
No, that's not true at all.
What do you mean?
No, that's not true. Actually, the young lady who sat down here the other couple,
there's all different sides to it.
yeah, of course, but to say it's the whole thing, it's just that it's really, really...
To say it's the whole thing, we can't say that.
But you said that. Sorry, if you're saying you didn't say that, I'll sit back down and take it from there.
It's not the whole thing. No, you can't.
So we're in agreement.
No, I'm talking about a select few on the block.
And I think we're talking about minority. The average child who I think we're talking about, the average black child who I'm familiar with, United Kingdom, perhaps even in the United States and many other places, Africa, Caribbean, etc., are more reflective of the young lady who sat down over here, who is coming up talking about how many A stars she's got one from another, she's doing well for herself. But don't just get me wrong, it's not just reflective of her. I mean, I was her 15 years ago, and pretty much myself and my friends were exactly the same thing. My older brothers were the same thing too, so I don't really know. Maybe it's the circles we move in.
I don't want to hold the mic here, so I'll let them.
Grapevine's a funny place, you know what? It really comes to life when it's about to finish. What's that about, people?
Hi. I think there's 3 different sets of youths. I think there's the youths that were brought up well by their parents, and their parents have showed them you can do this until the end of the sky. Then there's the middle set of youths who have had that, but also in an area where they're around gangs and there's no people that you don't really want to be around. And then there's the last set, whose parents don't care about them, who hasn't had any hope in life, who hasn't had nothing, and they think road is the way. Then them youths, they're the ones that are enrolling, if you will, the middle set of youths. Saying, come do this thing, man, you can get money, you can do this. Everything the government, they're the role models, them youths, the last set I just said, they're the role models for the middle set of youths. They're the ones that encourage them to do bad stuff. And if we want to get something done, we need to start with them youths there. We need to get them and show them that there's another way. Be the role models or be the parents that they never had. To show them there's other things they can do. Them kids are intelligent. They're selling drugs, but wow, they just do it. They got the mindset. They're making money. They hate the government because the government's trying to stop them from doing what they want to do. When really the government are the ones that have got the big bits of drugs anyway. So they're all the ones telling the other youths like, don't listen to the government, hate the government. That whole Mark Duggan thing, I think that's, wow. Anyway. It's just, I think if we want to get something done, we need to start with them, because they're the actual role models to some of our kids today. That's who our kids are looking up to, the ones that drive the BMWs, that got all the money. We haven't got enough role models, the ones that are actually doing good. Like you said, there's a black middle class and there's a black high class, but for some reason they want to move themselves away from these types of people. So who have they got to look up to? We need to start our own things, apprenticeships, anything, to make them people that were at the bottom, the examples, to show them we've come from where you are, we can do better things now. Like, that's what they need to do. If we want to start from anywhere, we need to start with them kids there, get the answers from them kids there, and just see what happens from there.
Before you speak, more hands are going up all over the place. I actually want to give everybody a chance. So I'm going to ask people to make their points more succinctly. I know there's Paris, I know there's Ade, I know there's Diane, I know there's Celeste, I know there's my man there. There's loads of hands, so I need us to start being more succinct in what we're saying, so everybody can get their little things said, okay?
I just want to go back to the man there that said he related to the girl there that got...
And yourself.
That got 3 A stars. Yeah. How many A stars in a row? 8 stars. Well, I myself got 3 A stars and an A, but you do not relate to me because at the age of 14 I was in a gang and I was on the street fighting stuff.
How do you know someone can relate to?
Let us speak first, and then let us speak first.
And I was seen as a troublesome teenager in school, and I remember in year 10 or 11 they tried to put me on foundation where I can only get a C, and I said no, I'm not doing foundation. They said yes, you are doing foundation. So I had to stay behind school till 5 o'clock doing the higher paper and achieving a B on that higher paper after school to actually be given the opportunity to be able to do the high paper in the real exam to get my 3 A stars and an A.
But what made it, sorry to interrupt, but what was the difference for you? Why was it that you were in a gang, yet you saw that the grass is greener, there's got to be a better way?
It's probably there's a lot of things that...
Well, hold on.
What was it for you?
I'm extremely intrigued.
I was in a gang because I was in care and there was no one to say come home at this time. I could just do what I want. I think at 13 I was in a rave because I look older. I'm 17, but I look older. And from the age of 13, I looked about 18, so I can get into that rave. From the age of 13, I was raving, and I think it got to a point where I've been there, done that. So when I got to the age of 15, I thought, okay, let me just like that? Concentrate.
Just like that?
Oh, and urban synergy, of course.
Okay.
So what we're hearing is that leadership, whether it comes in a good form or a bad form, is a deciding factor in the way that people function.
Definitely.
Hi, gosh, my name's Deanne and my brain's going because there's so much that I'm hearing that I want to respond to, so I'm hoping I can get it all out really quickly. First of all, I was most encouraged when those 4 young people came up because you know what jumped out at me is our young people do have a voice. They have a voice and they seem to believe that they don't. But we need to help them find that voice because they do have one, and those are the voices that need to be heard. So well done for speaking up, young people. Secondly, something that's coming through time and time and time again whilst I've been sitting here is one word: money. Yeah. Now we've been talking about it in the forms of funding, in the forms of pooling it, in the forms of earning it illegally. We've been talking about it in all different aspects, but it just keeps coming up and up and again and again and again. So this has obviously got to do with probably the problem and the solution. Because for me, I sit down and I think, how did we get to where we are now? And how did our young people get to where we are now? And I think it's important that we know the reason why, because we need to know what the problem is in order to fix it. It's no point just trying to move forward, which we have to do, but we've got to know what the problem was or what the problem is. Now, for me, I know that a lot of young people don't have respect for money. And that's simply, I personally believe, because they're not taught about it in the right way. And that is that money doesn't necessarily have to control your life. You've got to see it and you respect it, but you've got to know how it's got to work for you, how you make it work for you, and what it is, and the commodity that it is. I'm a businesswoman, I've got 4 businesses, and I attained those businesses as a single parent with 2 children. I've continued to build that. I'm now a presenter and an actress, and I spend time speaking to young people all the time to encourage them. I tell them to think about enterprise, because I was miseducated at school, and I felt that I had to just work in a bank and work as a fashion buyer and do whatever, but I always saw that glass ceiling, and it was, we all have choices. And I made the choice to say, well, okay, if I want to control my own destiny, I have to do something about it. I now spend time speaking to young people. There was a classic young person I wanted to bring here today, but he had a curfew of 9 o'clock. Why? Because he's continuously in problems with the police. However, when I speak to him, this is what he wants. He wants adults, he wants people that are further on in the journey of life to engage with him. Other people might feel that he's hostile. However, when I've taken the time just to pay a little, listen a little, and speak to him about money and how he's going to get money to work for him, he's interested. We have to start teaching our children from young about a bank account, about interest, about that money doesn't control your life, it doesn't make you happy, but how it can help you to live a better life. Sometimes it just has to come back to the simple basics, and that's just me trying to get it all into one.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt very, very quickly. On the tables there are some purple leaflets. Youth Investment Fund. I created this 2 days before, quote unquote, the riots, for the very purpose of people like us investing in our young people, putting our money, our resources, our time into a pot. So we can be, first of all, funding our own projects. You're talking about our own banks, our own buildings, our schools, our hospitals, our housing, okay? Youth Investment Fund, I've started it, I need people to come on board. Even, the power of our economy, £1 a month from people, standing order, think what we could be building up. But people are frightened of something different. They're frightened to give somewhere, but yet they will trust the government. That doesn't make sense to me at all, okay? So Youth Investment Fund, speak to me afterwards. This is something that is realistic. We can do this. We can fund our own beep, okay?
And it already exists.
Thank you. Okay, so like many of you here tonight, for me, like I said, part of the reason why I came here is not just to listen to the talks being talked out. Like David McQueen's mum says, talk is not cheap, it's free, right? And people like to talk, so we know that. So for me, really, it's about solutions. Now, one of the things that I've started with a view to recognizing that there's many different people doing things in the community, or there's people who don't know what's happening in the community. I recently, a few days ago, started a Facebook site. It's called Movement for Change. It's for people who are doing stuff in the community to go there, to put a network with each other so we can start working together. Now, from my perspective, one of the reasons why I'm back out on the circuit at this moment is, one of my beliefs from day one has simply been this: before you can engage with the government, before you can engage and start creating change, as we've heard, it's all about money. And then for me, one of the key things that I don't hear enough of is about how we do economic development in our community. Don't know what the solution is, but what I'm saying right now is, I am, and I heard what was said before about, okay, we're different people in different communities, but I have the firm belief that if people step up, eventually you will magnetize other individuals to you, and after a while, that has a ripple effect. So, one of my intentions, one of the things I'm working on right now is how to set up an economic empowerment. Don't know what it looks like, but what I'm putting out there is, if there's anybody out there who would be interested in going beyond talking and actually getting involved in an economic empowerment that we can actually roll out to build our own communities, hospitals, schools, universities, whatever it is, then I am open to talk to you guys. Thank you.
I think that very neatly leads on to what I do.
Great stuff.
I'm a, how do I describe myself? I'll tell you a bit about where I'm coming from. First of all, my origin is in South Africa. I grew up in South Africa, and when I heard about the riots that have taken place in the last few weeks, immediately I started seeing similarities between that and what happened to me when I was growing up. Okay. Now, the big mistake people make is in thinking you need money to make change. South Africans had zilch, right? We did things by boycotting stuff. And I honestly, and hand on heart, I will start this myself if I have to. I think just with the group of people that we have in this room, if we decided to boycott Facebook for 3 hours, we would cause ripples across the world if we had a statement that we needed to make. It's as simple as that. And I know it scares a lot of us because it means that you will get noticed. But if you have a clear mission statement that you know that you want to accomplish, sending out a message to young people to say, look, you don't have to take to the streets to make a change. Just don't go on BB for 3 hours. Do you understand what I'm saying, people? I'm just saying you can do very effective things. If your immediate media is not taking notice of what you have to say, you start making ripples across the international media space. And we do that by boycotting international companies, you know, like what we did in South Africa. We boycotted things like Coca-Cola, we boycotted things like Nestle, and that's how the message got across. Then the second thing that I have to say as well is I work in investment banking, and my own experience has been simply that I had no financial education as to how to spend my money. So one of the things that I've started doing is running workshops for people, and I'm not aiming this, I'm specifically not aiming this at young people, because I think this targets anybody 18 and over who is at work. Because a lot of us have not received the education that we need about how to spend our money effectively, how it affects our immediate economy, how it affects your household economy. A lot of us don't know how these things happen. So that's why I said I think it ties in very neatly with what you have to say, because I just think that a lot of the time, the little bit that we have to give, we forget to step forward with. And I'm just saying that I don't have much to give, but I'm willing to offer my services to help people to start making a change.
Thank you very much. Before you take the mic, you bring an interesting perspective of South Africa, and you talk about without money, right, change was still possible, and it was through the boycotting. But one of the things, a note which I've made here, one of the threads which seems to be coming through in this conversation is that things happen because of leadership, whether positive or negative. So in terms of those boycotting, I'm assuming, right, that there was some kind of leadership, there was some kind of management of that process. Was it that you looked towards somebody, or did you look within yourselves? How did that movement actually grow?
Well, you see as a lot of you know, it stemmed from the complete injustice of how my mother's generation was treated. And it started with Mandela, and it started in the 60s. So when he went into prison, it kind of took on a fire of its own. But when people saw the culmination of it with his release in 1990, people forget that there was like 3 decades of fight that had happened to get to that point. Now I'm the first one to say that I don't think that this kind of thing happens overnight. I think what we are starting now, don't be surprised if this takes another 10 years before we see some effective change, okay? Don't think that things are going to happen overnight. That's the first thing. So have a very realistic management of expectation. I think that's the one big thing, because people will get disillusioned if things don't happen by next year, right?
Sorry, I'm cutting in on that, but isn't that one of the issues which seems to be presented in terms of our youth culture, that everybody wants something now?
I agree.
So the very thing that you're talking about is the very thing that seems to not exist.
I agree, but that's what I'm saying. As a leadership, whoever takes up this kind of message needs to be very clear about the management of expectation, right? And what that will mean is, say for a young person, they do want to see immediate effect. They want to see, I've done something, how's it affected something? They want to see an immediate thing. So what I'm suggesting is, like, say something, I think it's quite a simple thing, telling people to boycott Facebook for a day will have such a massive effect economically, you have no idea. You really have no idea. Because for the advertising purposes alone, right, economically the ripple is enormous. Banks in Switzerland will take notice of the London people that's boycotting Facebook for a day. Do you know what I'm saying? So understanding, saying to young people, look, just hold it down for a bit. If you want to get noticed, it's cool. Then you go on the news, because then they're going to find out. Next thing you'll see articles popping up. On MSN, there'll be an article. On, you know, all these big people like Yahoo, Google, etc. They'll start writing articles. Then the young people can stand forward and say, this is my story, that's why I did it. Because going and writing, I'm not a criminal, so I wanted to do it in a way that's acceptable for me, within my bounds. And yes, they do want that, but then it's also a matter of managing their expectations accurately, I think.
Thank you very much.
David?
Very good, this gentleman. Come back. No, come straight. All right. Okay, all right. Okay, cool. All right. Two very quick things I think are going to be quite important here. The number one, I think, is going to be dialogue. One of the things I noticed, and especially when Paris got up to speed, is that a lot of people who are, I'm 42, okay, and I know I don't look it, but a lot of people who are kind of like around my age, all right, a lot of people around my age, older, sometimes we don't know, and let's be honest with you, we don't know how to communicate with young people because we think they speak a different language. I will walk into a school and I will say to a young person that my wife is Peng, she is Chung. So I walk down the hall and they'll be like, oh my gosh, what do you know about Peng and Chung? All of a sudden, some of you are still wondering, what the hell is Peng? Don't know about it, okay? But all of a sudden, we made a connection. And what I had to teach them, or what we really had to teach them about dialogue, is I don't mind you speaking in that language, or what people call it ghetto grammar, but what I want to teach you is how to be a chameleon. Learn how to speak here in this section, but when you go into another section, learn how to speak a certain language and be able to adapt to that. The second thing I want to say very quickly is that my wife and I, we run a company called Magnificent Generation, as I spoke of before. And one of the things that I'm very proud of, and I will say this, is that we have worked with a number of schools with quite a high population of young black people. And we have worked with, I think, consistently with about 5 schools we partnered with over the last 3 years. And one of the key things we do is we run an attainment program. And we bring in people, black professionals across the board, who work in business, who own their own company. We bring them in to tell the story to young people about what they can achieve. Every single one of those schools we have worked with, year on year, have had an improvement in their exam results with their GCSEs. Every single year. Some of the teachers don't want to give us the credit, but we know it was us, all right? But we've gone in, and what we've done, what we've realized, is that the power here is allowing young people to recognize what they can do. As I said, there are a lot of people who, today I got bombarded with emails from people who got like, I said, thank you, David, because we got like 7 A's and B's. I said, that wasn't me. What I did is I just started a conversation with you. You took that on your own. So I want to really encourage a lot of us to be able to go in there, to volunteer, to work with these young people. And if you don't understand the words, right, there's some of us who can actually help you, but start creating that dialogue. Because once you do that, and once you start creating that dialogue, people have a lot more respect for you. And it's not a question of, you know, saying, I think the question was made before, some people are afraid to go and talk to people on a bus. I'll go and sit on the back of the bus, I'll say, what are you saying, bro? I hand out my little fruitellers to them, and they're like, why, you weirdo, why are you handing my fruitellers, okay? But we've already started a conversation, all right? They'll start a conversation. And I'm just saying, sometimes it is really about that dialogue. And to be honest with you, in terms of putting stuff forward, and I know Synergy and BYA and LSTC and all the rest of the organisations, we're here. If you want to go into a school, if you want to be able to go out there and be able to share and work with and sharing those expertise that you have with young people, we are more, my wife just told me to slow down, we are more than willing to help.
No, gentlemen there, come forward quickly. I might hear when wife says why.
Greetings to the house. I should really get up here and speak, because my daughter, she's at the back and she told me, Daddy, just be a don't say anything. Really and truly, youth, money, environment, all the points really trivial in this scenario. In the Rastafarian community in this country, the Rastafarians always have a leading point. The reason they have a leading point is because we respect leaders and we want to be leaders ourselves. Now, one of the greatest leaders we have in this country was a brother named Bernie Grant. Bernie Grant made a great achievement. His achievement was applying for a thing called reparation. I was wondering if anybody can just put up their hand if they heard of reparation. All right. When he applied for reparation, it was exactly 7 months, 9 months. He died. He died. Louis Farrakhan made a bid for reparation. 4 months, 5 months afterwards, he get cancer. The big issue is that no matter how much business, no matter where you set up, right, as high as you want to reach, there will always be somebody there to meet you, to say, sorry, this door is not open to you. So what can you do about it?
Go back again.
No, you don't go back again. You don't work around it. You go directly to the vein that will affect you most. When Hitler decided to destroy the Jews in Germany, the Germans spread them all over the world. It was a thing called reparation that they applied for. And when they received the reparation money and went to America, they set up the entertainment industry, as you know now. They set up, I don't know to talk the amount of things that the Jews have set up. They set that originally from reparation money, but they did it as a group. The Indians, when Britain invaded India and took over India, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take too long at the time. Yeah. When Britain invaded India, India gains its wealth because the United Nations has it in their law that anyone who suffers from physical, biological, spiritual, any type of genocide in anywhere will be funded. It's an international law. Now what I'm saying to you also, who's the last set of people? Who's the last set of people that received that money? In Iraq, when Saddam Hussein leaves from Iran and go and invade Iraq, before the Americans came in or anything, yeah, the Iraqi people applied for reparation money. They got the money, and that's when they invested in oil. When they invested in oil, that's when the Americans came in and decided to take over the country. So this way, we'll move Saddam out here. Too much money. The reparation issue is too much money. We're talking now by law in this country, every black person inside of this room, whether you know it or not, you don't have to give up your passport, you don't have to give away anything, is entitled to 100 million businessmen. That's what I talk. You're not putting me in motion. If it's too loud, put the microphone back. You're entitled to £144,000. All you have to do is just fill out the paperwork. And I know this as a fact. Any youth that I get up, that me go to and decide, say me want to talk to and say, listen, you want money? Make me apply for this. They come to the meetings. They come to the meetings of the Pan-Africans. They come to the meetings of the NNC. They come to the Bernie Grants, the hardcore Grown Nation Black organizations, the ghetto youths, the Herman, the Court man, they're in there. They're in them organizations because you think they're selling coke and drugs for just make money. They're there to help their people. They're the smartest ones you could ever meet. Even Louis Farrakhan knows this. The Nation of Islam recruit most of their people from prison and upon the streets. So the point I'm making to you is very simple. It's this. There is a booty of money called reparation money. And if you hear of any meetings or anything that's happening for a reparation movement, check it out. I'm not saying anything more than that. I don't think I'm in a position to say anything more than that. I think all of you are very brave coming up here talking today to unite your people, because you look like the type of people that I know that I pass in the street. And if a tramp was down on the street, you would have passed it. And you wouldn't come out and just give the tramp a little money. I'll carry the tramp home and make him wash in the house. This is, I'm just saying to you, that our people have suffered, and they are suffering continually because of lack, just of lack. but I believe every black person inside of here has the potential to be like a God. And I suggest all of you walk, talk like he is a God. Why? Because the people who are in government, they know you have this power. But you know something? They're using your own power on you. You know, anytime you decide to use it back, in any issue, you will get what you need. Whether you're doing whether it's the personal development, corporate training, school programs, mental training, anything that you want to do. You are gods and goddesses. All right? Reparation, that's what I'm advertising. Thank you for your time.
I should say something very quickly. Harry spoke about gangs. I just want to say how we, urban cities, you might see all these professionals, but our professionals are like comedians as well. We do adapt, so we do go into estates and talk to young people. I just want to say, just make sure, you know, a lot of people in this room are frightened to talk. The writer over there himself will say, no, who is he? You're somebody, make sure you talk in your family and talk around the young people so they know who you are. Because I notice a lot of people don't talk, and then the young people don't have people to aspire to. So we're shutting down our own networks. We should say who we are. Get one of your nieces or your friends' children or your godchild to shadow you if they want to be a writer and shadow you. And likewise, everybody else do that in this room. But and there's another thing I'll say about young people. Like, you know, we all here, you know, a lot of us work. There's a wealth of knowledge in this room. People that work in councils, they understand, you know, the exclusion. A lot of young people are getting caught in the exclusions. How can I say it? Yeah, they're getting caught in the system. And a lot of parents, one by one, are getting caught up. They might get excluded and they get into this pipe where they can't get their child into another school. They're stuck in limbo world. And it's not nice. I'm hearing it. I've been into these estates, and young parents and children, they're upset and they're angry and they're frustrated and they're caught in this system while all of us are going to work. You know, counsellors, you have got the knowledge. Bring that knowledge back.
Tell the parents to get in contact with us.
No, we go out. You've got to go out as well and make them aware. They've got to, you've got to go to them. Yes, not
also, it's good to remember, because one of my businesses is a nursery, and when the children come in, I take them from 9 months, but when they come in and they start to talk and walk and everything, they are excelling.
Yeah.
Boys and girls.
Everyone's capable. Paris is a classic example. She was saying she's on planet. She's spoke about herself. So they've all got talent, but we need to go to them. But anyway, I was going to say urban synergies about early intervention is key, because sometimes once they get excluded on another path, it's hard. They've got this craving, they've got peer pressures. If you can get them as they're being suspended once, a few times, or on that path, catch them there and guide them somewhere else. You know, Paris is an example. But anyway, you said to say the website, you said?
Absolutely.
I just want to say our website is urbansynergy.com, and our mentees do work hard for the work. She worked for a year, they just get it just like that. We prepare them for opportunities and seek it and make that connection. Urbansynergy.com. Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, we're all there, LinkedIn. That's it.
Thank you very much, thank you very much. It's very tempting, very, very tempting on a night like this just to keep going, but I'm conscious of the fact that like time is running away. Please don't leave. We just want a few more moments, and I don't want to speak to an empty room. Okay? Has it been worth it tonight, guys?
Yes.
Tonight, I think that, like, for me, 3 words really come out. 3 key things. Holistic education. I'm not talking about schools. I'm talking about education in everything we do, in everything we move. There's learning. And there is a need for us to continue to learn from each other, learn from the environment, learn from our situations, because it's in that learning, okay, that we are then able to move into the leadership. And we all need leadership, right? Leadership comes in different forms. It doesn't mean you've got to follow a man, it doesn't mean you've got to follow a woman. Sometimes you just got to follow a dream, right? And to have that dream, to follow the dream, you have to first have that dream. But without a dream, where are we going to go? We're going around aimlessly, listening to whatever else is available, right? But the key thing which seems to just keep coming up over and over and over again is the thing of unification, right? How many fingers? How strong is that finger? If you put it into a fist, all the time the fist is stronger. We hear all the metaphors, we hear all of the rhetorics, but the truth of the matter is until we start to work together and recognise that we don't have to keep starting new things. These things already exist, right? We already know that if we actually work together, if we can build some kind of continuity, some form of sustainability, we can move forward. Why do I say that? Because everybody else has done the same thing. That's what the Chinese do, that's what the Muslims do, that's what the gays do. Every group has had some level of success in terms of economic development, in terms of their society. It's because they work together. And as long as we do not work together, we will continue to be individually successful, but community poor. Right? I strongly suggest that we look to get onto the platform of working as a unit, and I have to, at that stage, give a plug to black men in the community. Black Men in the Community is not an organisation. It doesn't want to own you, it doesn't want to stop you from doing what you do. But what it wants to do, it wants to collectively harness the strengths and the powers of the young, the youngest, and the oldest, all together so that we can, as a movement, surge forward. We have all that we need amongst ourselves, and as Celeste said, and I agree, it doesn't take money. Right? It doesn't take money. Money is something, okay, that's created to control the masses. Okay? We have the skills, we have the abilities if we choose to use them.
Sorry, sorry, just to say one slight thing, sorry. Please, whatever you do, don't invite people or give panels to people that will talk us down in the media.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Captain Bird will sing.
It's a fact.
Okay. And you will say Bird will sing, and somebody else will say Tony Sewell, and another person will say David Lammy, and everybody's got their point. The point of the matter is that sometimes you've got to take the good out of the rubbish. Okay? And what don't work for one person may work for another person. At the end of the day, look, it's a collective. And I don't know a collective where everybody agrees. What I do know is if we keep our eyes set on where we're going, right, we can get there, maybe different ways, but we can get there. We just have to be focused in that way. And what I'm saying is, please, blackmeninthecommunity.com. We've got the meet and brief. If you want to know more, like I said, we're not trying to build anything new. We want you to be individually strong, capable, powerful, so that collectively we can surge. That's all I have to say. I feel proud to be part of tonight. I actually feel that, you know, when we look back at the tape, and we listen to what we've actually achieved, I'm going to take on what Simone said, you know. Maybe Grapevine does need to go on tour. Maybe Grapevine needs to take this message into other places as well, because we can't just talk, we have to do. Thank you very much. I'm asking all the panel members to do their summing up, and then we're going to get the hell out of Dodge. Thank you. Okay, start with yourself.
I really don't have much to say because the mic's not on. It really is about the action. We go to so many meetings, conferences, workshops, seminars, we talk on Facebook, we talk amongst ourselves, we talk and talk and talk, and it's boring. I'm actually bored of talking to people because it's the same thing over and over again. We are so rich, we are so wealthy. I'm not talking about money. Yeah, we're rich in the things that we can actually do and achieve, but you cannot achieve by talking alone. So this evening, any meeting or any collective that you go to, there has to be an outcome from it. Not everybody will get involved because not everybody thinks the same way, but it only takes a few people to create a movement, to create that action, and then other people will follow, because like attracts like. So I just want to appreciate everybody that's come out this evening, especially our young people who got up and spoke and actually talked about the real issues.